In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to In the Tunnel. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Sean.
And we are bringing to you a remote holiday episode. A little shorter than most of the episodes we do, but due to technical difficulties, we're going to do the best that we can. We are not going to do video broadcast on this one. We're just bringing you straight old style. And let's get into it because it's late Friday night and... Well, after a long work week, let's just be honest, there's not a lot of desire to go 2 hours with this or even an hour and a half.
Yeah, so let's jump straight into it.
Yep.
I thought a good end of the year thing, as this is most likely our last podcast for the year, would be to do a season roundup for like the currently ongoing major sports and who's performing well, who isn't, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
So, well, we go through with your list. I know that I came up with a bit of a list, but let's see who you have on yours.
All right. So I just first I figured let's go through like who's performing really well across. We'll start with hockey. And our points leader right now is Mikko Rantanen. He's at 58 points at this point in the season, and that's like really good. As I mean, there's only 3 people above the 50-point mark at this point. For goalies, your best goalies are. Pekka Rinne with a 2.07 goals against average, and then he's also 4th on save percentage with 927. Then you have which by the way has Yaroslav Halak leading the save percentage for goalies.
But let's throw in why that is. Because he's Tuukka's backup?
Yeah. I mean,
it is what it, like, that's a pretty good one, too, and Halak obviously was a starter for a long time with the Islanders, but he's still Tuukka-esque's backup.
Right.
Smaller sample size.
But I mean, he does have a low goals against average at 2.2.
Yeah.
But never mind that, right? The wins leaders for goalies right now is Marc-Andre Fleury with 20. He seems like the only person on the Knights who can do something consistently.
Yeah, pretty much defining consistency for the Knights.
Yeah. And then the only other stat that I want to bring up was goals. And right now you have Ovechkin with only being... actually less than halfway through the season, already at 30, almost 1 under 30.
Yeah, I mean, look, not to take anything away from his career, but it's not a surprise that he's got a ton of goals.
Yeah,
and
but
I would say that 30 is a lot, but seeing how there's a number of guys already past 20 goals in the season,
right?
It's, the offense has been on an increase this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, though, there are years where nobody gets close to 50, and, like, you already have him and Skinner, 25, Skinner has 25, right? Ovechkin has 29. Yeah. That's halfway to 50, and we're not even halfway through the season.
Wasn't it only like a year or two ago that Crosby won the Richard with 40?
Yeah.
On the year?
I mean, yeah, and like there are some times when like 45 wins it or 40 wins it, and
There's also sometimes where 60 wins it.
yeah, but this is like this pace. Usually, when somebody hits 60, it's closer to the end of the season where they ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah, playoff
But
time.
this pace, like, it's not heard of because we're not even halfway through. Don't forget. So like, with a couple of games left to hit 40 games, like you could be seeing mid-30s.
Yeah. Can't disagree with that, especially with the Capitals playing and still maintaining that first place in the Metro position.
Right.
Let me ask you a question while we're on the subject of goals. You obviously brought up Jeff Skinner. You think that he's going to get a deal done to stay in Buffalo?
See, I don't know about staying in Buffalo because Buffalo has a lot of young guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to start worrying about cap at some point. So, I'm not sure they, like, I mean, I hope they keep Skinner because it'd be good for them, I think. But with their young defensive core, especially with the one they just drafted, I mean, they have 2 more years of him on an ELC, and I hope they can get a deal with Buffalo that works for their cap.
Yeah. If you were Buffalo, how many years would you resign Skinner for if you could? 2, 3?
Yeah, I would say that.
All right. And then when some of these young guys are up for new stuff or new deals, Skinner's off the books at that point.
Right.
All right. I mean, that's good business sense. I think everybody would be happy there. Especially if you're Buffalo and you acquired Skinner, not so much to be a rental, but a mentor, and to be able to keep him for longer than just one season would really help to complete the mentoring process to some of these young guys, too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
give them all the tools of the trade instead of just leaving them with a few tips.
Right, yeah, so that's why I see, like, 2 years would be good.
Mm-hmm. And if you're Skinner's camp, there's a lot of leverage that can be held. I mean, you got a guy who's number 2 in the league in goals this year, tied in first in plus minus at plus 21. He's doing a lot of things right this year that would help him to land a more lucrative deal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really hold plus minus in any regard, but I guess you could use it.
I mean, I'm just reaching for straws here.
Yeah.
At the same time, the agent for any athlete would probably be doing the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so what else do we have here?
Do you have any player you want to speak out that's doing good this season in hockey?
Well, look, was it Ovechkin just was bumped off a 14-game point streak, so obviously he's doing really well this year. And other than that, you know, I vowed to myself that this week it's now time to start watching more and more hockey. I'd say that I watched the Penguins Wild game, and Devin Dubnyk, like, we'll get into the segment later, but who needs to bounce back? I'd say Devin Dubnyk, if last night was any indicator of his season, and I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the stats or anything. He's obviously not in the top 5 in goaltending statistics in any category, but he was giving up some bad shots, and he gave up. He was stick handling behind the net poorly. I'd like to see some improvement out of him. Matt Murray, I'd say the same thing. I know that he's now back from the IR like a third time, but he's getting bailed out by teammates. I don't know. Part of me is just, you look at some of these statistical categories and for individual matters, they're fine, but they don't really mean anything. And I'm not going to praise the likes of those who are, doing well individually, but aren't helping to carry a team in a sense.
Right. I agree.
That being said, Flyers news, just a random pop in. A couple weeks ago we had an episode that I think, Sean, you made a joke about they fired the wrong Hextall for the Flyers.
Yeah, they fired the other one.
Yeah. 2 for the price of 1. So
yeah, they fired the correct one this time,
exactly.
in my opinion.
It was like a mail-in rebate. You get the discount later.
Oh, God.
So,
did you see the news that came out that was quickly shot down about Quenneville coaching the Flyers?
I did not. Why don't you inform me as to what that was?
No, it's like some couple of news agencies came out with Quenneville set to coach the Flyers, and then immediately the Flyers said no, and then immediately Quenneville said no.
Wait, isn't Quenneville like one of the most winning coaches in NHL history?
Definitely in Blackhawks history, so probably.
Okay, so right then and there, not a good fit for the Flyers because, the Flyers, they're one of the teams that aren't as consistent as they'd like to be. Even when they're at their best, the next year they kind of slip.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not an appealing job in that sense to someone with a high pedigree like Quenneville was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So in terms of end of the year stats in hockey, I don't really have too much. Yeah. I'm
any
sure
underperformers you want to start talking about, or?
I'm sure I'd love to see Crosby higher up on the list in points, but the fact of the matter is I'm pretty sure in the top 10.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah. And Kessel and Malkin aren't far behind him, so I'm not too worried about that because if they're all in a clutter that's in the top 20, then that shows how the Stars in Pittsburgh are doing for the team instead of just individually.
Right.
So they're all performing on a consistent basis. So I'm fine with that.
Okay. You want to talk about you? Any underperformers?
Underperformers.
We can talk teams. We can talk players specifically.
Well, yeah, I think that Vegas still has a few spots to jump. Before they can shake the label of underperforming. Because, like you said, Fleury's carried them for most of the way this year.
Yeah, but you have Pacioretty, who's clearly underperforming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Carlson. I think Carlson's playing okay, but definitely not to what he was playing last year. So, as a team, I think they're just coming more back down to earth rather than clearly underperforming.
Right.
As far as underperforming teams, I think you got the Blues and the Devils as your 2 clear ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't think much needs to be said about those 2 teams. They're clearly, all the stats show it, and it's not pretty.
Yeah. Well, I'd also think maybe what about the Oilers? I understand that the roster balance is different for the Oilers.
Right.
But still, it's close enough to 2 years ago when they made the playoffs that it's you guys should be doing better.
But you have one person, they have Connor McDavid. He has 50 points almost this season already.
Mm-hmm.
There is your offense.
Yeah. And their goaltending is not great.
It's
all right.
Their goaltending was never great. It's decent. It's not bad. It's not good.
Right, but that can sometimes make a difference.
Right, but there's so many more problems to worry about than their goaltending right now. Their goaltending, I'll say this, with their goaltending, they should be able to at least make it to the playoff.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not in a position to.
Yeah, but that just shows that the rest of the team is also bad. You take out Connor McDavid from that team's not getting 30 points this year.
You're right.
but also in the sense that I feel like their defensemen are a lot more offensively minded than I like seeing from defensemen.
Yeah. When you have offensive defensemen, you have to have a balance in your six, and teams that don't have it because they're all too aggressive with the puck offensively, it does cost them on the defensive end. Give up breakaways, shorthanded, stuff like that, and
right.
You have to have the balance.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think they're underperforming. I think they're performing as they should because they literally are completely one-dimensional, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll tell you straight up that the two underperforming teams, in my opinion, are the Blues and my team, the Devil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're the Blues, maybe you stop putting like puppies on the ice and actually, focus up.
No, but like the Blues, they literally have two players that are possibly not underperforming, and it's like Ryan O'Reilly and Maroon.
It's not great.
The rest of the team, puppies or not, like it don't really matter. They're just not doing good.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, you have any other players / team you want to talk about?
I do not.
All right, so let's hit the only other major sport going on right now aside from football.
Going on right now as in weeknight.
Yeah. And that's basketball. So you want to take over this one?
Sure. As the resident co-host of actually having played for a while, but not really focusing on the NBA, outside of playing 2K sometimes, I'll gladly take over this one. I feel like I'm well qualified for it. All right, so no shocker here. If we're looking at points per game numbers, your NBA leader is James Harden, followed by Durant. James Harden about 32 points per game, and Durant sitting around 29. In terms of assists, Russell Westbrook and Kyle Lowry both averaging 10-plus assists per game. Let's see. Field goal percentage, Rudy Gobert. I mean, you can just look at a bunch of centers. If we're looking at field goal percentage, it doesn't really...
Right.
It's one of those stats I like. In fact, the top 5 are all centers. Mm-hmm. Defensively, Andre Drummond is averaging 15.5 rebounds per game, followed by DeAndre Jordan, 14. From blocks, Miles Turner, 2.84. Damn, that's a lot. 2.84 blocks per game. Anthony Davis, 2.79. Block numbers seem to be a little high this year. So
I mean, there's pretty big difference in number 1 having 2.84 and number 5 having a 2.03.
It is, but at the same time, I feel like as the season pans out, you won't see those numbers close to 3 or anything anymore.
Right.
And then steals, Russell Westbrook, 2.68 steals per game. And how crazy is this? Just look at the top 5. You have 2 players from the Thunder and 2 players from the Rockets in the top 5 for steals per game.
Yep. That's pretty damn crazy.
Yeah, especially because steals in itself, in comparison to turnovers, steals are harder to come by.
Right.
Because not all turnovers become steals, but to think that you're averaging when you play Oklahoma City about 6, if we're rounding up 6 steals per game, if you're playing 5 steals per game if you're playing the Rockets, that's something to game plan for. From a statistics standpoint, yeah. I mean, but that's what the NBA is. Mm-hmm. Let's say what it is. The NBA is a stats-centered league. It's a players-centered league. And these inflated numbers also come from some, as we all know, questionable officiating that happens in the NBA. Traveling's not called as well as it used to be. Fouls are, tic-tac.
I feel like fouls are too easy to draw nowadays.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A little tic-tac, kind of easy. Just a little bump in, shoot the ball, get to the line kind of stuff. Also will inflate some numbers.
Right.
And I will say this. If you look at Andre Drummond, he's probably one of the smaller centers. I mean, obviously still a giant, but not a 7-footer. I think 6'10", 6'11".
Right.
To be averaging 15.5 rebounds per game, that's pretty good considering the likes of DeAndre Jordan, Hassan Whiteside, and Joel Embiid are behind him and arguably are a couple inches taller at the respective positions and for the respective teams. But yeah. So in terms of actually looking at the standings and, you know, who needs to be better, I would say, let's see, the Wizards in the East. Obviously, signing Dwight Howard, they did not do that to try to say, hey, like, this is finals team now. Because Dwight Howard was way past the point in his career where he was that. But at the same time, they do have 2 all-star guards, but they don't get along together. They just traded Austin Rivers and Kelly Oubre to the Suns for scraps. For Trevor Ariza. I'm sorry, not scraps. He's making $15 million on a 1-year contract. But he'll be their small forward. But for the roster that they had before they made the trade, they probably should have been in a playoff picture instead of the 11th seed in the East.
I mean, I think it's still quite early in the season, right? They've only played third. Actually, they've played 32 games. Holy crap.
Yeah, but they're also 8 games under 500.
Yeah.
And 2 games under 500 will get you into the playoffs.
As of now, I mean, in the East, but the East is completely...
So to be 6 games out of it.
Yeah. I mean, the East is, weird, though, because 2 games is... I mean, it's in and out of the playoffs, right? Because...
Kind of, but if... The other thing I'll say is the Wizards are surrounded by teams that are rebuilding. The Bulls, Hawks, Cavs, Knicks. If you want to call the Knicks a rebuilding team, the Knicks will never admit that they are rebuilding, but the fact that they're keeping first-round picks now would suggest that they are. And the Nets, they're surrounded by teams that aren't trying to be good anymore.
I mean...
They're trying to get better in a strategic long-term approach, whereas the Wizards... They're trying to compete now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that.
And then on the West Coast, let's see. The Jazz. I mean, Jazz and Pelicans.
They're both
need to get better.
Just out of a playoff spot, but
they are, and that's how tight the West is.
Yeah.
But from like you said, they've played around 32 games in their season already.
Yeah, it's getting tougher.
And it is only going to keep getting tougher. So the fact that 3 teams in the Jazz, Pelicans, and Timberwolves, I'm not making any excuses for the Timberwolves either because, they traded away Jimmy Butler, but it's not like they don't have pieces. Like they have Wiggins, they have Towns, they have a seemingly rejuvenated Derrick Rose. I'm not making excuses for them that they should be the 14th seed in the West. And again, like you said, it's a very close West because everybody is in it outside of the Suns who are 8-24.
Yeah, literally.
But, as time goes on, you're going to have to make a push. And some of these teams that were in the playoffs last year, it's easier to make a push now while everybody's still only got kind of like one eye open than it's going to be in March and April when everybody's, gunning for the same spots.
Yeah, but I mean, because in the East, you have 4 teams that are basically out of it, which are the Knicks, Cavs, Hawks, and Bulls, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas in the West, you have the Suns at 8-24. Every other team is like 2 or 3 games out of a playoff spot.
And what's crazy about this is that the Suns are on a 4-game winning streak.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. So let's look at the comedic thing of this here. The Suns are on a 4-game winning streak. The Nets are on a 7-game winning streak.
Right, because they are
these are two teams that are like, well, this is not supposed to happen for either of them.
You notice I kept the Nets in the picture when I mentioned the East.
Well, yeah, but it's because you have to.
Yeah.
Like, statistically speaking.
Yeah.
They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're 8-8 in away games.
Which is, I mean, they had a pretty damn good start to the season, too.
They did, and then they lost arguably their best player to injury, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're definitely, I think the Nets are overachieving at this point, which is good for them, but how much can they keep this up?
It's hard to tell because it all comes down to what kind of picks in the upcoming drafts the Nets have. If they don't have a first-round pick in the next draft, then you might as well play to win now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not playing for a first-round pick, or like if you have another team's first-round pick, it doesn't come down to how you performed. So
right.
It seems like they have that. And also they're probably playing to try to convince some of these young guys like a D'Angelo Russell to re-sign at the end of the year. I don't know if the Nets want to re-sign him, but I guess there's a lot of hype around the NBA that he is one of the young and up-and-coming guys. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's not an easy draw.
Right.
But the Nets do apparently have the space in upcoming free agencies to sign some max deals. So
yeah, they do.
So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Any specific players you want to talk about?
Well, I already mentioned, and I'm probably wrong in my belief that Derrick Rose has had a rejuvenation in his career, but I'm sticking with that one.
Okay.
Because I've only seen the highlights of the one game where he had 50 points, so I'm sticking with it. In terms of my disappointments, I would like to focus on, Carmelo Anthony. Now, people will think I'm taking a comedic approach here, because he's like the best Hawks player of all time and all that stuff. But the fact is, Carmelo Anthony is ruining his own career. I don't know if it's an attitude issue. I don't know if it's a he doesn't have it anymore issue. From what we've seen over the past few years in the off seasons, he goes pretty focused and pretty hard in terms of his training and approach to getting ready for the next season.
Okay, but before you continue, right, I can make the argument that Carmelo Anthony has been ruining his own career for the past 3 years.
And that's fine. That doesn't change the fact that he still needs to, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, was he waived, first of all?
I'm not sure.
Let's do a little fact-checking. I guess he's still on the Rockets. Let's see.
Yeah.
This makes for great radio.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see any news, so.
All right. So, but the fact is, there was also rumors for a while, and still is rumors, that he was going to get waived. So, he's on the cusp of getting kicked off the team, and he's also, and I think that's a good analogy for the fact that he's on the cusp of getting his career kicked to the curb, because unless things change, and unless he starts to accept a role other than superstar, which it seems like he's slowly getting into with the Rockets, but until he fully commits and fully acknowledges that his time in the spotlight has finished, his career cannot end on his terms. He's going to get released, or he's going to get traded and waived, and he's going to end up being like Amari Stoudemire and just kind of like fade into the distance. So, if that's my first bounce back candidate, I wouldn't say want him to bounce back. I'd say he needs to for his sake. And my other one for the NBA, Brandon Ingram, Lakers forward. So you're on the same roster as LeBron, and you're a young guy. And I get that LeBron kind of like takes the spot in the lineup. He takes the spotlight. But he was in the altercation with the Rockets and got suspended. He's been suspended 4 games this year. He's had an ankle injury and missed some time, which, factor that in. But he's also been demoted to the G League. So a former number 2 overall pick is in the G League now.
Damn. Man.
There's no excuses with this kind of group and for this potential. You got to harness the opportunity and do something with it.
Fair enough.
And like I said, the Utah Jazz and the New Orleans Pelicans and the Timberwolves,
yep.
They have the rosters to get back. They just need to.
All right, so nothing else to bring up on basketball?
No.
All right, so
what about you? You got anything for me?
No.
So
let's hit baseball. I know we covered it a little last week, but some more things have gone on. The one thing that we do want to cover is today the Dodgers and Reds made a trade. Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, and Alex Wood are the 3 big names from the Dodgers being sent to the Reds, along with some catcher named Kyle Farmer. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati sends Homer Bailey and 2 prospects to the Dodgers. So, first impressions, Jeremy.
I can't believe that this deal actually gets approved by the league, first of all, because one team is sending one pitcher in Homer Bailey, who's kind of like, if at best is at the back end of his prime, and was never arguably an all-star pitcher. I mean, he might have made an appearance or 2. I'm not going to take the time to look into it, but he was never like the number 1 guy in Cincinnati.
Right.
And for him to be sent with 2 prospects over to the Dodgers for 3 MLB roster players, and I don't know, Kyle Farmer's probably a fringe guy who gets optioned a lot.
Along with cash consideration.
Yeah. That's an interesting deal. It seems kind of lopsided, and we talked before the show, and I said to you that this doesn't seem like the deal that the Dodgers normally make. They're normally the guys that go out and get the big names. They got Machado, they got Brian Dozier on rentals in the past year's trade deadline. Is like, they have obviously shown commitment over the years in acquiring the big names no matter how long they're on contract for. And for this to happen, I'm not really sure why it happened. Because it seems like you're kind of taking away from the roster that you had.
So I think it's more of a money thing over anything else.
I guess, but it's the question of who are they. It's not like
why
all
are
this
they saving the money?
No, I'm saying what for the Dodgers does this clear enough cap for who to
Bryce
sign
Harper.
who? You really think that the combination of Matt Kemp, who has been traded to like 5 teams over the past 4 years, and Yasiel Puig is enough for Bryce Harper?
Hello, those 3, I mean, I think Puig and Wood have to go through arbitration for their salaries next year or something. But I think they're gonna totally, like, on that side, the Dodgers are sending $40-some million of salary to the Reds, where Bailey gets 28, but if he's bought out, it's 17.
But again, with the money that Harper is desiring and wanting from his camp, I still don't know that they're in the market for him.
But I mean, you've made the space for this year at least, so I see how it could possibly be a thing, but it's definitely a money thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't understand. I mean, the Cincinnati Reds, on paper, win the trade just for, being able to get these guys, considering they were in the basement last year,
right?
In the Central. But it's still a head scratcher for me because I don't think that I don't think that the Dodgers are still really in play.
Yeah, but
I think that the Yankees and the Cubs are more in play for Harper.
But I think, money was definitely the thing. Whether it's actually Bryce Harper that they're saving the money for or whatever reason, I think that was the clear motive behind the trade once you look at the numbers.
Well, I think timing also comes into play here too, because my question becomes now, if you're going to make this move, and if like Harper doesn't work out, is like with the winter meetings having already taken place and everything, some of the bigger name free agents are off the board now. You probably could have used this money that you now have as a backup to sign some bigger name guys who aren't going to be there later on in free agency. So it comes down also to how committed of an approach do you want to be and how much time do you want to give a candidate like a Machado or a Harper or some of these other guys.
Right. I agree. I'm just saying that it was definitely a money thing. How they spend the money is not what we're here for. It's why did they get this money in the first place, right?
Yeah, yet to be determined.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting, and it certainly makes the NL Central the ever-changing, insurmountable climb for the Pirates. They'll just never make it to first place, especially now with Paul Goldschmidt being a Cardinal.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, so that's the only thing we have on MLB, as it is the off-season, so not much going on.
Yeah. Oh, the Pirates might get Tulowitzki.
Oh, fun.
Apparently, they're like one of the two. There's like 6 teams that are considered candidates, and the Pirates and like some other team are considered to be like going at it harder than the other teams. So yeah, coming soon to the banks of the Three Rivers in ambulance because Tulowitzki might get hurt again.
Well, we'll see.
Yay!
All right,
I love stories that come to an end with such a high note.
All right, so let's move on to a quick NFL playoff picture. What's changed in a week?
Mm-hmm.
So Saints, Rams, and Bears have clinched.
Yeah.
All clinched their division. Nobody's clinched 1 or 2 yet.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys are still leading the East with the Seahawks and Vikings in the wild card.
Right.
As of now, the only teams in the hunt are the Eagles and Redskins at 7-7, and the Panthers at 6-8.
The Panthers are done.
I think
they might as well not be in the hunt.
The Eagles and Redskins are really only in the hunt for the division spot.
Right. And no, because the Vikings are 7-6-1, and these teams are 7-7.
Yeah, the one thing.
It's only it's.
But the Eagles and Redskins do play each other again, so one of those teams is definitely going to lose another game.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. One of these teams will beat the crap out of the other, and then the other, and whoever loses will be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of other parts of the playoff picture, nothing's really changed. And the same goes for the AFC, really. You know, the teams don't change, but the seeding in the AFC does.
Right.
That's the difference because Houston is now in a position for a bye.
Right, yeah, so the Chiefs are the only... actually, Chiefs and Chargers clinch, both at 11-3. Chiefs hold the tiebreaker. Yeah, Texans have the second bye as of now because the Patriots are 9-5. Steelers are 8-5-1 with the Ravens half game behind at 8-6.
Right. So right now, if you're a Steelers fan like me, our scenario to win the AFC North, we would have to win and the Baltimore Ravens lose.
Yeah.
But and I will say it's an uphill battle for the Steelers having to play the Saints in New Orleans. But at the same time, the Ravens play the Chargers.
Right, yeah, so, I mean, it's not an easy week for either of you guys.
It's not an easy week, and it probably does come down to Week 17. But if the Chargers can take care of business, you know, Steelers could still be in the driver's seat in Week 17, just a classic winning in. Right. Although I'd settle for a wild card at this point because, you know, for them to win the division it would be thrilling, but I can't sit here and say that they deserve it.
Right.
And at the same time, I say that having known that like beating the Patriots was their Super Bowl kind of game, and like it took 7 years and like 5 attempts to beat the Patriots, and they finally did it. Right.
Yeah, but also in the hunt for the AFC is a lot, I guess, still a little bit more interesting than the NFC with the Colts and Titans both at 8-6, tied with the Ravens. I guess the Ravens have the tiebreak. Dolphins at 7-7, and they're still technically in. I'm not going to say the Browns are in as of this point.
Well, the Browns are in mathematically, but if you look at the details, like so many things have to happen for them to actually make it.
Don't the Ravens have to the Ravens, Colts, and Titans have to basically lose out?
Yeah, and they need a team to actually tie.
Right.
Not a loss. They need a tie out of a team.
Right.
So right then and there, if it was week 3 and we after the third tie of the season and we were then it's yeah, maybe we could sit here and say that's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen.
No.
Not at this point in the season where fatigue sets in and body health sets in.
Right.
It's just, this is the time of year where stronger teams just win without it going to overtime.
Yep.
So I hate to say this, even if the Browns win this week, they'll probably get eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't consider them in the picture. They're barely in mathematically. But I mean, it's still pretty interesting with 2 teams having the same, 3 teams having the same record, which is the lowest seeds record, right? 8-6.
I mean, I will say it won't mean anything come playoff time. Mm-hmm. But right now, the fact that the Patriots have yet to clinch the division, because if they lose out and the Dolphins win out, then I guess the Dolphins would win it. But the fact of the matter is this is the first time in a long, long time where the Patriots this late in the season haven't clinched the division.
Right.
They normally have it wrapped up by November. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. It's making a good parody this year.
And it makes for a competitive balance a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's all I got. What about you?
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Nice, short, and sweet episode.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All right. Happy holidays.